Hi, welcome to another Riverside Chat here at the American River with Alex Cosper. And I was the one who, on my last episode of Riverside Chats for SAC TV, called the market top on Bitcoin. Yeah, so it was a few weeks back and Bitcoin got up to something like 73,000, and I said that's got to be the top. And it's just been raging, just non-stop, you know, kind of like what on the American River would be called fool's gold for what people discovered as gold but wasn't really gold. Anyway, fool's gold, man. That's what's on the market right now. Lots of fool's gold. I'm not a pessimist. I don't think the market's gonna crash. I'm not like Ray Dalio, how do you say his name? Ray Dalio and all these other guys, these Wall Street superstars who have predicted a market crash now for over 2 years. And it just really hasn't happened yet. There's been pullbacks, that's about it. Is there gonna be a big crash? That's really hard to say because the elites control the stock market, so they can keep it going as long as they want. That's how it works. You know, they throw their money around in different things all day long, and it's very hard to follow the money because it doesn't always go in logical patterns. You know, one day like a real estate stock might be up and the next day that's down while, you know, tech is on fire. So it all bounces around. It's a funny market to watch, but Bitcoin has gone up almost in a straight line. That's one of the lies they have said in the financial media, is that nothing goes up in a straight line. Well, sometimes stuff does, and Bitcoin did, but I called the market top, at least for now, maybe for March 2024, 73,000 around there, wherever it peaked out. I only called it top because it was so ridiculous by then. It was so freaking unbelievable that it was like fool's gold. So here on the American River, so many gold fever stories, so many gold rush stories, so many fool's gold stories. I try to bring them to you a little at a time. I want to talk about gold in the sense that at one time the music industry thought of gold and platinum albums as the monumental sign of success. That was as late as the 1990s, maybe early 2000s, and then the album sales started dropping off, and then by that I mean CD album sales and tape album sales, and any way you could buy an album, vinyl, that was dropping off in the 2000s until they started counting streams in terms of how much people supposedly listen. Now, a stream on Spotify or Apple Music or any of these things doesn't guarantee that anyone ever heard the music. So it can be manipulated. I don't know if they're doing anything about it. I just know that it's a way different world now than back then, when you could actually point to a gold record and say, yeah, this sold 500,000 copies. At one time, gold meant 1 million copies in America, but then they changed it like in the 70s to 500,000. 500,000 was gold, and then 1 million was platinum. But we haven't seen much of that this century, actually in the past decade. So the question becomes, is rock dead? And your 2024 barometer, I'm the guy who called the top on Bitcoin, at least in the short run. I'm going to say that rock is dead only in the heads of people who don't want to hear it again. Otherwise, people who love rock, it's still alive and well. There's like thousands and thousands and thousands of songs you can listen to on Apple Music or Spotify or just in your own collection. And that music, I don't think is dying. I think that music will be around for a long, long time, especially the Beatles, who are on the Billboard's top 200 chart. They're even in the top 100 with their 1962 to 1966 hits. And so there's a bunch of there's more classic rock albums on the Billboard 200 album chart right now than there are from like modern rock, like current rock. So like Fleetwood Mac, Journey, Queen, a bunch of others have Creedence Clearwater Revival. They still have albums consistently on the Billboard album chart. So, you know, streams, yeah, they count. A lot of people don't take them seriously anymore because they can be manipulated. But I guess I'm calling the top on rock, meaning when will rock top out? When will rock finally hit its peak? And I still think it's years from now. I think we're in a bizarre period where not a lot of rock appears on the charts. And that's because the labels really haven't signed any innovative or captivating rock artists in a long time. There have been some, but it's a short list compared to last century, which is a long list that people still listen to, and it's still on the charts. Whereas the newer rock is not on the charts. So how can you think of that? I just did an interview with my friend from Milwaukee, Lee Arnold, who's a radio consultant. He consults rock stations across America, mainly in the Midwest at this time. But he's programmed some legendary progressive rock stations in America, like WORJ in Orlando, Florida. And Lee talked about that. He told stories about how, classic rock has this longevity that not all music genres or music or radio formats have. So it's in the music itself, because the music is a soundtrack of people's lives. Rock was written and performed very artistically, and because of that, it has longevity. That's really there's a lot of power in it, like emotional and intellectual power put into rock lyrics and music and arranging. So it's all well thought out, and even the stuff that's just made up on the spot can be fun stuff. There's lots of fun rock that still comes out, like in the indie world. So like I'm checking the indie world a lot, and I'm finding cool music. Deer Park Avenue is a female fronted band. It's really cool. They were in Sacramento for a while, but I guess they're traveling around the world. And others, I interviewed Kitty O'Neill, Sacramento radio personality, and she's in a band called Skylar's Pool, and they sound really good to me. And other bands, local bands, a friend of mine named Morris Knight does music in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's also in the radio industry, like Kitty O'Neill and how I used to be. But I make music too, so I want you to hear my latest rock song. The closest thing that I've done that's kind of a band orientation thing with guitars is called Rock and Roll Save the Day.
Felt
Rock and roll save the day. Rock and roll save the day. Rock and roll save the day. Yeah, rock and roll save the day. Busy making up my own rules, and rock and roll save the day. Rock and roll pave the way. Rock and roll is clear to stay. Yeah, rock and roll save the day. Rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll. Rock and roll save the day. Rock and roll save the day. Rock and roll save the day. Yeah, rock and roll save the day. Save the